Something is beneath the mesa. On the secret of Skinwalker Ranch, the investigation team has spent years cataloging the unexplained. Lights in the sky, readings that defy instruments, patterns of behavior that no one on staff can fully account for. But this season, the ground itself has become the mystery. A routine radar sweep near the base of the mesa returned something the team did not expect. A void, large, deep, and according to every record the team could locate, it should not be there. Ground-penetrating radar is not new to this property. It has been used for years to map subsurface features, locate old structures, and rule out ordinary explanations for extraordinary claims. What makes this particular sweep different is simple. The cavity it revealed does not appear on any geological survey ever conducted in this region. Not the county records, not the state mining archives, not even the private surveys commissioned decades earlier by previous landowners. A formation this size, sitting this close to the surface, should have been documented long ago. It was not. The immediate question is straightforward, even if the answer is not. Is this a natural feature that simply escaped detection for 100 years, or is it something that was shaped, deliberately or otherwise, by forces the team has yet to identify? Nobody on the investigation is willing to speculate this early, but nobody is willing to dismiss it either. Word spreads quickly across the research team. Within hours, senior investigators are reviewing the raw radar data, comparing it against archived scans of the property, looking for any hint that this feature was flagged before and simply overlooked. They find nothing. The area beneath the mesa has been scanned in the past for other purposes, and in every prior pass, the cavity is either absent from the results or too faint to register. Something about this sweep pulled it into focus for the first time. The decision is made to treat this seriously. Before any excavation is considered, the team needs to understand exactly what they are dealing with, and radar alone will not be enough to justify the resources a full investigation would require. The first extended survey begins at dawn. Investigators move methodically across the base of the mesa, running repeated passes with the radar unit, cross-checking depth readings, and mapping the boundaries of the cavity in far greater detail than the initial scan allowed. What emerges is a formation roughly consistent in shape from one angle to the next, and that consistency is what catches the attention of the geology consultant brought in to review the data. Natural cavities, he explains, tend to be irregular. Water erosion, gas pockets, mineral dissolution, these processes rarely produce clean, symmetrical boundaries. What the radar is showing instead is a cavity whose edges appear unusually even, almost as though something guided its formation rather than leaving it to chance. He is careful with his language. He does not claim the cavity was carved. He simply notes that its uniformity is not typical of what he would expect to find in this type of terrain. The depth is also unusual. Regional lava tubes and karst formations, both common explanations for subsurface voids in this part of the country, tend to sit at more predictable depths relative to the surrounding rock strata. This cavity sits lower and at an angle that does not match the natural tilt of the mesa's geological layers. It is a small detail, but small details are often where these investigations begin. Rather than rely on a single instrument, the team brings in additional equipment, a magnetometer to detect variations in the property's magnetic field, and a seismic reflection unit capable of building a more precise picture of what lies beneath the surface. Two more scientific methods applied independently to see whether they support what the radar first suggested. The results aligned. Both instruments confirm the presence of the cavity in roughly the same location, at roughly the same depth. For a discovery this significant, that kind of agreement matters. It rules out equipment error. It rules out a fluke reading. Whatever is under the mesa is real, and it is large enough to register clearly across 3 separate detection methods. But the magnetometer data introduces something the team was not expecting. Along the perimeter of the cavity, the magnetic field shows a subtle but measurable distortion, a signature that does not match the baseline readings taken elsewhere on the property. The geophysicist reviewing the results is careful not to overstate the finding. Magnetic anomalies can occur naturally, often linked to mineral deposits or shifts in rock composition. Still, he admits, seeing one align this precisely with the boundary of an unexplained cavity is worth investigating further. With 3 independent instruments now confirming the same anomaly, the team faces a decision. Excavation is expensive, invasive, and not something undertaken lightly on a property already under close scientific observation. Before committing to that step, the historians on staff are asked to dig through whatever records exist, deeds, survey notes, old interviews, for any indication that someone, at some point, already knew something about this location. The historical search does not disappoint. Buried in decades-old land survey documents, investigators find a brief, almost dismissive notation near the base of the mesa. Unusual ground conditions, unsuitable for grazing. No further explanation is given. It is the kind of note a surveyor might leave in passing, never expecting anyone to revisit it a century later. Interviews with longtime residents in the surrounding area add another layer. Several ranchers, now elderly, recall being told by their own parents and grandparents that livestock avoided a particular stretch of ground near the mesa. No clear reason was ever given. It was simply understood, passed down as a piece of practical ranching knowledge rather than anything mysterious. Animals did not graze there, animals did not linger there, and nobody, as far as the record shows, ever asked why. Taken individually, these details are easy to dismiss. Old notations can mean almost anything. Animal behavior can be influenced by dozens of ordinary factors, but taken together, alongside 3 independent instrument readings confirming an unusual cavity in precisely this location, the pattern becomes harder to ignore. Something about this specific patch of ground has been quietly noted, generation after generation, without ever being formally investigated. That changes now. With historical context in hand and confirmed instrument data pointing to the same location, the team moves forward with plans to physically access the cavity. This is not a decision made quickly. Engineers are brought in to assess whether a narrow borehole can be drilled safely without destabilizing the surrounding rock or compromising the integrity of whatever lies below. After careful review, the plan is approved. A precision drill will create a borehole just wide enough to lower a specialized camera probe into the cavity, a method designed to gather visual and sensor data while minimizing any physical disturbance. Safety protocols are put in place. Structural engineers monitor the drilling in real time, watching for any sign of instability. Nobody wants to be responsible for collapsing a formation that has, in one way or another, gone unexplained for 100 years. The drilling itself takes longer than expected. The rock proves denser than initial estimates suggested, and the team proceeds cautiously, prioritizing safety over speed. When the borehole finally breaks through into open space, there is a brief pause before the probe is lowered. Everyone on site understands that whatever the camera captures in the next few minutes will shape the direction of the entire investigation. The first images are almost anticlimactic in their stillness. Darkness, rock. And then, as the probe's lighting adjusts, the interior walls of the chamber come into view, and they are smooth, not roughly smooth, in the way water might polish stone over centuries, but consistently smooth across a wide span of surface, with none of the jagged texture typically associated with natural cave formation in this type of rock. The operator guiding the probe slows its descent, rotating the camera in a full sweep to capture the chamber from every available angle. The smoothness is not confined to a single wall. It extends across the floor and curves gently upward toward what appears to be a ceiling far higher than the borehole's dimensions initially suggested. Whatever shaped this space, natural or otherwise, did so on a scale larger than the radar imaging alone had implied. Almost immediately, the onboard sensors register something else. Temperature inside the chamber drops sharply compared to readings taken just above it, a difference far more pronounced than the team would expect from depth alone. And the electromagnetic field inside the cavity spikes well above the baseline levels recorded elsewhere on the property, echoing the boundary distortion the magnetometer detected earlier, but now measured directly at the source. The technician monitoring the readout checks the calibration twice, assuming a fault somewhere in the equipment. The numbers hold steady across repeated passes, consistent enough that a malfunction can reasonably be ruled out. Whatever is producing this reading is coming from inside the chamber itself. For a moment, no one on the team speaks. The visual evidence and the sensor data are telling two different stories that somehow need to fit together. A geological formation, however unusual, should not behave like this, and yet nothing about the footage suggests an obviously artificial structure either. It exists somewhere in between. Too strange for a simple explanation, too ambiguous for a dramatic one. This is where the investigation's experts begin to diverge. The geologist on the team proposes that rare natural processes, certain patterns of mineral dissolution, or ancient gas activity moving through softer rock, could theoretically produce a chamber with unusually smooth walls. It would be uncommon, he admits, but not unheard of in specific geological conditions. He references a handful of documented cases elsewhere in the world where similar cavities formed slowly over vast stretches of geologic time through processes that leave behind exactly this kind of polished interior surface. The physicist on the team is less convinced. In her assessment, the electromagnetic pattern recorded inside the chamber does not correspond to any natural mineral composition she is aware of. Something, she argues, would need to be actively influencing that field, and geology alone. She notes that the intensity of the reading, concentrated so precisely along the chamber's interior surface, behaves less like a passive mineral signature and more like an active source, though she is careful to add that active does not necessarily mean artificial. It could still reflect a natural process the team simply does not yet fully understand. Neither expert claims certainty. Both are careful to frame their positions as working theories rather than conclusions, but the disagreement itself becomes part of the story, a reminder that even trained specialists looking at the same data can arrive at different interpretations. It is exactly the kind of intellectual tension that keeps this investigation grounded in real scientific uncertainty rather than easy answers. To move past theory, the team decides they need physical evidence, not just visual and sensor readings. A small sample is carefully extracted from the chamber wall using a specialized tool attached to the probe, minimizing disruption to the surrounding structure. The sample is sealed, removed, and sent for laboratory analysis, while the probe itself remains in place to continue gathering baseline readings for comparison. The results, when they arrive, only deepen the mystery. The mineral composition of the sample does not match standard readings for the surrounding bedrock. Its density is notably different as well, falling outside the expected range for this type of rock formation in this region. Trace elements present in the sample appear in concentrations the lab technicians describe as statistically unusual for material recovered at this depth. The lab is careful to label these findings as preliminary. Further testing will be required before any firm conclusions can be drawn. But preliminary or not, the implications are difficult to ignore. If the material embedded in the chamber wall is genuinely inconsistent with its surroundings, two questions immediately follow. How did it get there? And does its presence help explain the unusual electromagnetic readings recorded throughout the chamber? A third question quickly joins them. If this material is not native to the surrounding bedrock, was it deposited gradually by some natural geological process over an extended period, or does its presence suggest something entered, or was placed within, this space long before the borehole ever reached it? Neither question has an answer yet. What the team does have is growing confidence that this chamber is not behaving like an ordinary geological feature, whatever its ultimate origin turns out to be. It is at this point that the investigation reaches its most significant moment. With the probe repositioned deeper into the chamber, the camera captures a formation along the far wall that immediately draws attention. A structure with a level of symmetry that stands in sharp contrast to the surrounding rock. It is not an obviously constructed object. There are no clear tool marks, no unmistakable signs of deliberate craftsmanship, but its proportions repeat at intervals too regular to easily attribute to chance, in a way that natural erosion rarely produces. The team's reaction is measured rather than triumphant. Investigators know how easily pattern recognition can mislead the human eye, how natural formations can occasionally mimic order by coincidence. Nobody on site is willing to declare this evidence of anything beyond what it visibly is, but nobody is willing to dismiss it either. The footage is documented extensively, measured from multiple angles, and flagged for further, more detailed analysis in the weeks ahead. A follow-up survey using higher-resolution imaging equipment is already being scheduled, in hopes that a clearer picture will help settle at least part of the disagreement dividing the team. This single discovery reframes the entire investigation. What began as a routine radar anomaly has evolved into a chamber with unexplained thermal behavior, unusual electromagnetic activity, mineral composition inconsistent with its surroundings, and now a structural feature too symmetrical to comfortably explain away. Each piece of evidence, on its own, might be dismissed. Together, they form a pattern the team cannot yet fully interpret, one that seems to grow more complicated with every new instrument brought to bear on it. And this discovery does not exist in isolation. Reviewing the property's broader investigative history, the team notes something worth considering carefully. Surface anomalies documented in earlier seasons, unexplained readings, unusual animal behavior, isolated electromagnetic disturbances recorded at various points across the ranch, have never been definitively connected to any single underlying cause. Some of those earlier readings, investigators now recall, were recorded not far from this same stretch of ground, though never traced to any specific source at the time. Could this chamber be part of that broader pattern? Could it help explain phenomena the investigation has puzzled over for years? Or is this an entirely separate mystery that simply happens to share the same ground? Nobody offers a confident answer. That, in itself, says something about where this investigation currently stands. What is clear is that the chamber beneath the mesa can no longer be treated as an isolated curiosity. It has become, almost overnight, one of the central threads running through the entire season's research. Investigators are now revisiting old case files with fresh eyes, searching for any detail that might have seemed insignificant at the time, but takes on new weight in light of what has just been found. It is a slow, careful process, the kind of work that rarely makes for dramatic footage, but often matters more than anything captured on camera. Sometimes, the most important discoveries are made not in the field, but at a desk, rereading a report written years earlier. What the team can say with confidence is this: There is a chamber beneath the mesa that should not exist, according to any historical record. Its walls are unusually smooth. Its internal temperature and electromagnetic readings differ significantly from its surroundings. A sample taken from its interior does not match the composition of the surrounding bedrock, and deep within it lies a formation whose symmetry raises questions that current evidence cannot fully resolve. What the team cannot yet say is what any of this ultimately means. Is this the product of a rare, still poorly understood natural process? Is it connected to the broader unexplained activity long associated with this property? Or does it represent something entirely outside current understanding? The investigation has not reached that answer, and it may be some time before it does. Every method applied so far, radar, magnetometry, seismic reflection, thermal and electromagnetic sensing, laboratory analysis, has confirmed that something unusual exists beneath the mesa. None of them, alone or together, has been able to explain why. For now, the chamber remains sealed beneath the mesa, its full extent still unmapped, its origin still undetermined. Further excavation is already being planned, along with additional laboratory analysis of the material recovered from its walls, and a wider survey to determine just how far this formation extends beneath the surrounding terrain. Investigators are also preparing to revisit the historical record once more, searching for any other overlooked notation that might connect this chamber to decades of quiet observations already gathered about this land. What began as a single, unusual radar reading has become one of the most significant open questions this investigation has faced in years. A discovery that has answered almost nothing, and in doing so, has raised almost everything.